Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasha Namamaha. Namaste everyone and welcome to our study of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. We are approaching towards the end of the Gita. And so let me just share the screen with in the last class, we're looking at verse 31. And it said something about the nature of the Atman. A characteristic of the Atman is the Purusha, that though it dwells in the body, it is not affected by whatever happens by the body-mind complex. It's untainted by anything. Its pristine purity is not in any way affected. And that's a good thing to remember, because in our everyday lives, through our actions, through our thoughts, words, and deeds, we do many things which leave an impression and impact on the mind and the body also. And we are not always very happy with the purity and the perfection of what we do. And we feel that if we have done something wrong, we have a guilty conscience, we feel bad about yourself, it lowers our self-esteem, and all those type of things happen. But the relevance of this particular shloka is that it reminds us that all our actions, apparently they seem to color or affect the purity of the Atman, but in reality, the Atman is untouched by all actions and the results and everything. That means the pristine purity of the self is never compromised. It is never contaminated. Really, it is untouched by all those things, by the actions of the gunas, by the changes that are happening on the prakriti. It seems to be defiled, it seems to be contaminated, but in reality, or tainted, but it is not. So, na karoti na lipyate. Even though the Atman is dwelling in the body, its presence is necessary for the body and mind to work as in the living situation. When the Atman departs, the body, of course, does not go through any actions. But all the activities of the body and the mind do not in any way taint the Atman. So anaditvat, why is it that? Because it is without beginning. Or nirgunatvat, because it is beyond all qualities. O Konteya, this Atman, I am, this Atman or the Supreme Self, Paramatman, though immutable, although dwelling in the body, sarirastha, na karoti, does not in reality do anything by its own sense of agency, and is not tainted thereby. So the sense of being, the mind being affected by something, some action, suppose you do and you feel good about it or you feel bad about it, is rooted in the sense of the doership. I am the doer, and therefore the results of that action come to me. And if some good thing happens, I feel happy. If it's not, then I feel unhappy. If it's an uplifting act, pious act, we feel uplifted and purified. And if it's some act that is of a lower nature, then we go a few inches down, so to say. Now, this verse says, don't bother about that. That is based on ignorance. What is the ignorance? Ignorance is this I sense that I am a separate entity and I am a doer. Kartritva abhiman, bhoktritva abhiman. That is the result of spiritual ignorance rooted in the I sense. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, avidya or spiritual ignorance is defined by 5 qualities. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Out of avidya, out of spiritual ignorance, comes asmita, the I sense. And that I sense has two consequences, two parts. It is attracted to or attached to something. It's called raga, attachment to the body. I am this body. Attachment to other bodies, my pet, my family members, my community, my house, my car, my name, my fame. So all these are different ways that the tentacles of the ego goes out and attaches to things of the world, thinking that they fulfill it, that they give it happiness and all that. That is a result of ignorance. So raga means attachment to these things. Dvesha, well, it doesn't go to everything. Certain things it stays away from, as an aversion from certain people, certain situations, certain ideas, and all that. So that is dvesha. And excessive attachment to this body, or continuation of life, attachment to life rather, that I should not die. And that is called abhinivesha. They're all rooted in that spiritual ignorance, where the wave thinks it is a wave on its own and it's not part of the ocean. Now, so I'm discussing this so that, yeah, while that is going to be our everyday experience, but this Vedanta knowledge should come as a light and say, look, that is all rooted in ignorance. Really, my Atman is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta. Nitya means eternal, eternally. Shuddha means pure. Buddha means it is effulgent in knowledge. Mukta is ever free. It seems to be bound, it seems to be ignorant, it seems to be sad, all those things there, but that is a result of the Atman coming and getting entangled with Prakriti, which is mind body. This entanglement is the cause of the problem. The moment we can detach, we find that the Atman is ever free, and it abides in its pure, pristine beauty and purity. That is the whole idea behind spiritual sadhana, so that we can disentangle ourselves from whatever is in Prakriti, the matrix of Prakriti. This leads us, as a foundation for the next two verses, because the idea is so powerful and interesting and important. Sri Krishna explains or expands on this same idea using two more verses. And he gives some example, two similes. Yatha. Yatha means as, just like. So let's have a look at that. Yatha sarvagatam sokshmyat. Yes.
Your screen is displaying the recording details on the bottom.
Recording it. I thought so. Let me just try to get rid of it and then try again. Somehow it has come there. All right, 1 minute. Where is it? So it has disappeared. And
Yes.
and let me pick up the one. Maybe it is. 1 minute, everyone. Okay, maybe you'll get it right now. How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, coming to this verse 32. Yatha sarvagatam sokshmyat akasham nopalipyate sarvatra sthito dehe tatha atma na upalipyate. Yatha tatha, just as so. So yatha sarvagatam. Sarvagatam, as it is all pervading. Sarva means everywhere, all. Gatam means to go, something that moves from one place to the other. If something is able to move everywhere, that means it's omnipresent. It's all everywhere. What is that? Space. So there are different types of space. The world in which we live in, where there are plant, trees, buildings, that is called Maha Akasha, the elemental space in which galaxies, solar systems, all things are there, perceived by our senses. There is another space finer than that, Sukshma, is called the mental space, Chit Akasa, Chit, the realm of our thoughts, words, ideas, imaginations, dreams, all those things. There are also things, ideas are thoughts, but subtle. That is called Chit Akasha. And finer than that, just like ice, water, and water vapor, there is called Chid Akasa, Chid. That is the space of consciousness. So there's a spectrum. Let us say there are three bands. Some things in the Chidakasha, everything is undifferentiated, just like the white light. Then white light passing becomes, and it becomes more grosser, passing through the prism, a beam of white light, like in physics we study, becomes differentiated. Prakriti means that which is differentiated. It has spread out, and you got a whole spectrum of colors. 7 main colors are there, but there are infinite number of colors. So that would be a Chit Akasha. And then it becomes more defined, takes the names and forms, and becomes the objects that we see all around us through our senses. So in this elemental space, that example is given. Space is a good analogy for the all-pervasiveness of the Atman and its unaffectedness, not being affected by anything. So Sri Krishna takes that example of Akasha, the space, and says that many things happen in this space, but space is itself not affected by all those things that happen there. Another one we can give is just like in a movie, you go in the cinema hall, the movie starts, there's a wide screen there, and before you know, the drama, tragedy, comedy, everything is happening. So much shooting, killing might be there, blood on the screen. But when the movie is over, the screen is unaffected by all that happened on the screen. Likewise, in space, if there's a room and somebody lights some fire in there, the room becomes filled with smoke. It seems to be affected, polluted, it's cloudy and difficult to breathe in there. But you open the window, two windows actually, you have to have some cross ventilation, and you'll find that the smoke particles which were suspended in the air, they all move out. And after some time, you see the space in the room is absolutely clear. It was not affected by the pollutants that were there, appeared to be hanging in there. So likewise, the Atman is untainted by all things that it apparently contains. That example is given here. Yatha sarvagatam sokshmyat akasham nopalipyate. Why is it not affected? Sokshmyat, due to its subtlety. Sukshma. Sukshma means subtle. So if you want to experience the unaffectedness of your Atman nature, then we should be able to lift our mind to that subtle plane, because that's where the unaffectedness and purity is experienced. But when the same mind comes down to the gross level, then you feel you are affected by it. So the physical body, if you are, you roll on the ground, your body gets covered with the dirt that is there. You cannot at that lower level say, hey, my body is not polluted, is not tainted, is not made dirty because the dirt is not sticking on that. Of course, at the gross level it is. At the mind level, yes, good and bad ideas, thoughts are there. You do something good, you feel very uplifted. If you do something very bad, then it troubles your conscience, and you can't simply say, no, my mind is not affected by that. That is, mind will be affected. But at the highest level, at the Atman level, none of these changes happening in the body and mind are able to taint it. And that's where the absolute purity of the self is to be found and discovered. So uh, it should not be that we are going to purify the body uh, forever. or purify the mind. Mind will be affected by the nature of the work one indulges in. Dharma will uplift the mind, adharma will lower the mind, but all the actions of the body and mind really do not affect the Atman. And therefore, that is where we should seek our true nature. So, yatha sarvagatam akasham, this all-pervading space, na upalipyate, not defiled, not tainted. Uh, why? The reason is given due to its subtlety. So we have to understand why it is not affected and how to reach a state where we will not be affected by everything. And the means would be how to reach that subtle dimension of our being. Likewise, similarly, the self, Atman, avasthita, present everywhere, sarvatra, even in this body, dehe, in the body, na upalipate, is not defiled. The running translation is, as the all-pervading space is not tainted because of its subtlety, similarly, the self, present everywhere in all bodies, is not tainted. So you'll see great souls who have realized the Atman nature, or who are always abiding in the Atman nature, they can go around and do many things in the world, but they themselves are not tainted and affected by what is happening because they don't have a sense of agency. They know guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. The three qualities, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, has produced this whole universe, and they mix and intermingle within themselves. The Atman is the Sakshi, is the witness to all these things, and it maintains its witness nature. This is what is beautifully taught in the Bhagavad Gita, and and Sri Krishna himself is the most wonderful example of what he's teaching. So you'll see in the battlefield of life, he is in the midst of all action. The Pandavas and Kauravas are fighting. Arjuna is a great warrior, he's an instrument. But you see the position of Sri Krishna, how he is in the midst of a tremendous war. Thousands and thousands of warriors are killing, fighting, and all that. But Sri Krishna's mind is unaffected by all the changes that are happening there. He is the example of what is called a sthita prajna, a person whose wisdom is established in the highest truth. He is a witness to everything. So that is the example. As we go fighting our own little battles of life, can we maintain that aloofness and that witness nature? How do we do that? Well, before you go into the battlefield, we have to prepare yourself and put on the armor and everything. What is that armor? This is what that's the protective power, the energy of the japa and meditation comes. We dive deep into ourselves in the Atman nature, remind ourselves of our truths, the qualities of the Atman that we are. Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta. That's how the scriptures tell us. Nitya is eternal, Shuddha is pure, Buddha is full of consciousness, and Mukta, ever free. That is my true identity. That is what we should identify with. Nowadays, it's very, very fashionable to talk about what we identify as. So people go around telling, yes, physically I'm male or female, but they say that's not what I am. I identify myself as such and such and such. Well, let us apply that same psychology as in our spiritual thinking. Let us say, let us not worry about our identification with the body or the mind. Let us identify ourselves with our Atman nature. And that is how it should be, best way. And so always reminding ourselves, and how to intensify that through japa and meditation. And then when you go out into the world, interact with people, be part of various activities of the drama of life, then every now and then you should pause and ask yourself, where am I? Now, where is my anchor? In physics, there's a concept of location. It comes from the definition, a word called locus. Locus is the point where you're present. So as there's a definition of a circle is the locus of all points that are equidistant from a center. Where are we located? So now and then we have to ask ourselves, where is my sense of location? Is it at a very gross physical body level? If you're in the gym, then you're pumping the iron, you definitely are very, very conscious about your physical body at that time. Or if you are studying, then definitely you are more identified with your mind. And at the time of meditation, we are more identified with our Atman nature. Well, that's what we're trying to do in there. So if the mind comes down, then the world of the material level will swing in and begin to affect us. If the mind goes up, then those ideas and thoughts that are related to that spiritual level, they become tuned to us. This is a very important point. Maybe I should little explain, because here is a little bit of psychology about mental well-being in its application. Let me see if I can pull this out. So we said that there's a spectrum, okay, of planes of consciousness levels, and we broadly say this is gross, subtle, causal. Okay, and your mind is like, you've got this old radios where you have got this tuning thing, and you tune from one frequency to the other. So it's a meter that goes up or down, and these are so many stations, AM, FM, or whatever TV channel are marked there. So you receive the signal that is relevant to the point you are tuned to. So let us say this is you are in a philosophy class, or here in the Vedanta class, like that. At this point, you are aware of your mind space, your thoughts and ideas, but it's a world of ideas that you're not conscious about how you're sitting on, where you are, all those things, physical body's presence and posture and all those type of things. So when you are at that particular point, when you're interacting with others, you will radiate ideas and thoughts at that level. So the mind is what is called a transmitter and receiver of ideas. In communication, there is something called RT, radio, receiver and transmitter. So when you're tuned to a particular frequency, all communications that are happening at that particular frequency are received on your station. And whatever you say, you're transmitting it out to others also. And then when you shift your frequency to a next level, another level, then all those ideas you send out at that particular frequency, and at the same time you're also receiving those thoughts are there. And if you go to a higher level, then you send out higher ideas to the world, positive, beautiful ideas. And also whatever the world has given out there, saints and sages and wonderful people have thought ideas out, and they're available in that particular mind space or that particular frequency, they come into you also. Here is a very important point, that the world that becomes available to us, or the world that we experience at any time, depends on the frequency that we are tuned to. If your mind goes down, you'll find that all lower-based negative ideas begin to rush into your mind, and they'll drag it down, and then the even lower ideas will begin to come into your mind, because they naturally, where you tune to, they begin to affect you, and that will drag you down. So it's like a ping pong ball that is dropped at the top of the stairs. It falls to one step, and then that makes it fall to the next and next and next, and before you know, it has come down there. So that's how one sinks into anxiety and worry and tension and depression and all those type of things there. The negative energies begin to sweep in, whatever is out there, thought by all types of people, that is available in that frequency of the mind, in this space that we are occupying. They begin to affect us, infect us, and drag us down. On the other hand, if we make an effort through meditation to uplift on the mind to the higher frequency, then what happens is its opposite happens. Something wonderful happens, and all those wonderful ideas, positive ideas, begin to come into our mind and affect us, help us. That's why right in the beginning, when Sri Krishna is trying to help Arjuna, who is a bit confused and depressed, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, first chapter 1 is there. Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, here's the psychology. Uddharet atmana atmanam, na atmanam sadayet, atmanneva atmano bandhu, atmanneva ripuratmanam. Raise yourself by your self-effort, sadhana. Do not lower yourself. If you can raise yourself, you are going to be your own friend. Atmaneva, Atmano Bandhu. And if your mind comes down, then Atmaneva, Ripura Atmana. Your mind itself becomes the enemy, in the sense that no one really out there trying to harm you. It's just that you have lowered your mind to that lower level, and those negative energies are beginning to now come and affect us. So this type of understanding is very, very empowering, because the more day you are feeling little down, for whatever reason, you might want to blame the world around, people around. If nothing is there, to blame the weather around because it's very cloudy and I'm feeling very low type of thing. It's cold in winter, whatever is there. That type of giving, that is, the world can only affect you because you are in tune with that world. And so if you understand this type of, or are armed with this type of understanding, then you said, okay, I can do something about it. The world can only affect it so long I'm available to be affected by that world. Let me, through self-effort, lift my mind to another level, high level. And if I can do that, you'll find that the negative ideas, energies that were there simply drop off, because they are at a different frequency. Sometimes you find the influence of the external world very, very powerful. So for example, you go to somebody's house where there's a funeral or death. Of course, you have to go, because you have to share your condolences or support them, whatever. And you come to a place where all are very, very sorrowful, having a long face, people are crying and all those things. And the moment you enter in that room, you find that your whole mind comes down a few meters down. And you also begin to feel, if people are crying, you'll find in your eyes tears will appear and you might start sobbing yourself. Such is the power of that. You'll experience that when people go to the funeral. You're all cheerful and all those things. You go and sit down there, then everyone starts giving those eulogies and this and that, and become very emotional, and you'll find some tears will appear in your eyes. That energy of that place drags your mind down. At the same time, you go to some wonderful place where there's a very positive energy, maybe a shrine or temple or place where people are high spiritual energies there. You'll find that your mind simply lifts up, and suddenly you've forgotten the external world, your own worries and problems in this, and you feel uplifted. So this is what's happening. Certain places, certain people, certain environments can drag your mind down. That is the company to be avoided. And certain people, certain places, certain environments will lift your mind naturally. That's the company to be sought. And that second is called satsanga, spiritual company. So that's very, very important in spiritual life. There is a little bit of digression, but I thought that is something we can talk about. So this Atman is not affected by all those things. What is affected is the mind. And the mind is affected by the information or energy that is available at the frequency at which the mind is tuned to. Can you do anything about it? Yes, it's your own mind. And you can subjectively make an effort to uplift the mind, and the objective world that is troubling will automatically drop off. So you're listening to a music, and maybe it's a terrible music. So what do? You don't complain there's a bad radio or whatever, bad station. You said, I can change the station. And you change the station and the music stops. Likewise, the world will give its own music, good and bad. You choose which one you want to receive. The question is, do you have the capacity to change the frequency? And that is, many people say, no, we are stuck into this. We have to listen to this. We can't get out. We have to put up with this person or this environment or this work. And then you whinge, you grumble, you complain, and you suffer. Others say, I will empower myself. I will detach myself, and I will be not let my mind to be affected by the external world. So I will exercise a subjective control, not blame people out there. I will try to take some action about it. Spiritual life is about developing that capacity. So yatha sarvagatam sokshmyat akasham nopalipyate sarvatra sthito hridehe tatha atma nopalipyate. The reason the mind is not affected or the Atman is not at all tainted by the world is due to its subtlety, sokshmyat. And the way that we can respond to the world so that we are not affected by the world is to lift the mind to that subtler dimension, not to bring it down to the grosser level. So this is where sadhana part comes to it. The Atman is extremely subtle, that's not affected by anything. In the physical space, the AI is subtler than a physical table or whatever is there. So, or smoke or dust, and therefore it's not affected by those particles and there. So this is an important idea that needs to be dwelt on, because we all get affected by this world, infected by this world, and we are not able to do not know how to respond to it or free ourselves, and we suffer, we blame others, we do not know that we can empower ourselves to be free from all this suffering. Freedom means the world outside cannot affect us. We're not talking about spiritual freedom here. Just spiritual freedom means there's of course no coming and going from this, getting free from this cycle of birth. But just to be free from the world so that we don't have to dance to its music, so that the world is not controlling us, and it, whether it's a physical world, the weather is very cold, so I'm feeling miserable, that type of thing, or people around us, if they're nice to you, they are happy. If they're not such a good boss or something is not very nice in the family or community or environment, then that's affecting us, or anything for that matter. To be in a state where the world cannot touch us, cannot affect us, it's a wonderful thing in itself. Those are the people who only truly enjoy peace of mind. And others, well, they might have momentary moments or instances of short periods of peace of mind, but then the world will again agitate them and unsettle them, and therefore they suffer so much. So I think this is a good particular verse for practical, but you have to think about ways how you will apply in your own life. And there's a second verse that's a very important idea. So Sri Krishna takes up another example to illustrate that point. The second one is Yatha prakashyate ekam Krishnam lokam imam ravi Kshetram Kshetri tatha Krishnam prakashyati bharata. So this is about, of course, that non-contamination, but another idea of where is the real illumination of the world come from. That means, who's the real seer behind all those things? Apparently, you and I are different jivas, Atmans, but really, the real reality is that there is only one Atman, which is the Paramatman. So let us look at this verse, or let's look at the meaning part. Oh Arjuna, just as the single sun illumines this entire world, similarly, the knower of the field, Kshetrajna, illumines the whole field, Kshetra. The example that is given is one of we have seen before. So here's the waves in the ocean, and in the sky there is the sun. The sun spreads direction, sun sheds its light on directions, and that light coming falls and makes different reflections, as you will see. So when you're looking at this water, you will see little shining reflections everywhere because the waves are moving, so they are sort of flittering around there. And every wave will have its own reflection, so to say, so many there. So if you're looking down at the waves, then you will see so many reflections. These so many reflections are the so many jivas that we are there. But in reality, there's only one sun in the sky. So this verse says, Yatha, yes, Eka, one, Ravi is sun. So some people have got this name Ravi, a very nice, beautiful name. The meaning is Ravi is the sun. Bhaswata is also another name of the sun. And these are names given to remind us about the luminous nature of the divine that is present in us. What does it do? Prakashyati, illumines, that its nature. The sun's nature is that it is self-luminous and it illumines other things also. The Atman is self-luminous and it illumines other things that we experience through our senses in this world. So, idam here means this, Krishnam, whole, loka, means the world. O Bharata, as one sun illumines this whole world consisting of so many variety of names and forms, objects, tatha, similarly, Ch13, the supreme self, the knower of the field, prakashyati, illumines Krishnam, the whole field, which is Kshetram. So, what are these? Right in the beginning of this chapter, these Kshetra was defined. What were they? Mahabhutani Ahankara Buddhi Avyaktameva Cha. I think there are 2 or 3 verses right in the beginning that defined the scope of what is called Kshetra. So the question is then asked, okay, how many Atmans we have really? Apparently, we have for one separate Atmans, but in reality, there is only one Atman, which is the Paramatman, the sun in the sky. Now, let us look at the properties of the two. The apparent reflected sun on the waves and the real sun in the sky. Okay, that is an interesting study in itself. So let us see. So this is the real sun, and this is there's a lecture of Swami Vivekananda, I think in volume 2 of the complete works. The title is The Real and the Apparent Man. The apparent man is this individual, the jiva, who thinks he's born, he's dying, and involved in all activities. The real man or the real sun is the Paramatman, the Atman, which is unaffected by all the changes that are happening on the wave. So, in the apparent world, there are so many waves, X, Y, Z, Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z, of different shapes, size, colors, black, brown, white, male, female, and all combinations there on all these different minds, different ideologies, different thoughts. Why are there so many different? Because of the permutation and combination of the 3 gunas, which are the essential constituents out of which Maha Prakriti produces all these 24 cosmic principles of the Sankhya philosophy. So there are infinite varieties. They could be almost filled with too much tamas, where there is hardly any show of life as a stone. There might be a little, some light shown, like a tree. It's a living being, but can't move around, yet it's still alive. In a bacteria, an amoeba, or in some insect, more of that consciousness is there, so it's moving around there. And then you come to various animals where the tamas is becoming less, rajas is becoming more, a little bit of sattva, until it comes to a human being where the buddhi is shining a little bit more. So what is happening is not that they have different more or less of Atman in them. There's one Atman in all of them, but some are covered more, in others it is covered less. In some, the manifestation of the power is more, Atman's power; in others, it is less. And therefore, it's called Shakti Vishesha, difference in the manifestation of the power. Just like 240 volt electricity supplied to all the light bulbs in the house, but a 25 watt bulb gives a certain amount of light, less than a 60 watt bulb, less than a 100 watt bulb. Different bulbs have different capacity to manifest more light or less light depending on their wattage. Likewise, same Atman is present in all beings, but depending on the purity of the mind, which means how much sattva. Sattva is the element that defines the purity. If sattva is more in such a person, there is more illumination of knowledge, kindness, compassion, vairagya, dispassion for the world, a strong power of discrimination between the real and the unreal, etc. And where the sattva is less and more of tamas is there, then there is delusion, confusion, and all those type of things that we see. So comparing. So what we want, we know enough about the apparent, the wave, the personality, the individuality that we see in so many forms around us, including ourselves. But we are more interested in the real sun and how the two are different. So if the waves are in a sort of a cyclonic form, then there's so much change happening around the world, around this Prakriti. And there's drama, there is catastrophe, there's death and wars and all those type of things. Does that really affect the sun in the sky? The answer is no. It only affects the reflected sun, not the real sun. And if we are identified with the real sun, as Sri Krishna is, then he's not affected by all the war that is happening around there. An ignorant person is identified with the the let us use that lowercase I. His ego is lower I, and this is the capital I. This is what the capital I is the real sun. The reflected sun is the lower I, and each one has got their own I, X, I, Y, I, Z. Each one has got his own ego, identified with the body and the mind. And that's where all the suffering comes. So what is real? Real means that it is permanent. It was there before, is there now, and will be there in future. It's beyond time only, but basically we're trying to say past, present, and future exist in it, but do not affect it. Just like poison exists in a snake, but does not affect the snake. While in this phenomenal world, in the world of Prakriti, time, space, causation are there, and changes are happening, and we are affected by or identified with those changes, and therefore we feel I was not there, I'm born, I'm becoming old, I'll die. Really, those changes are happening in Prakriti, of the body, but the ignorant I appropriates those changes to itself, and therefore, in that delusion, it thinks it's born, it's becoming old, and it will die. That ignorance is to be cut off. And that's the whole purpose of spiritual life. How to detach ourselves, disentangle ourselves, the Purusha from Prakriti, from Kshetra and Kshetrajna. That's why it's called Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. And therefore we come to the last verse of this particular chapter. The translation is, they who know thus. So whatever is taught in this chapter, starting from Kshetra, Kshetrajna, jnana, that leads to the identification or knowledge of the Kshetrajna. And then we went through these other verses where we talk about the omnipresence or one soul present in all, or one behind the many. Ultimately, we come to the idea that the Atman, though like the sun in the sky, is being reflected in all the waves, yet it itself is not affected. It doesn't come, it doesn't go. If the ocean becomes totally flat and there are no waves, and there's only one reflection, that does not in any way affect the sun in the sky by all the changes that's happening. Such is the nature or the unaffectedness of the Paramatman. So if one is identified or has Brahmajnana or self-knowledge, such a person moves in this world totally unaffected by all the changes that are happening there. To him, this world is a great drama. He is the screen on which the movie is being played. There can be comedy, there can be tragedy in the movie. But when the movie is over, there's nothing there to see. He's always aware of his unaffected nature. And that is what mukti in freedom is really about. Freedom from all changes, freedom from all ignorance, yet being a total spectator to whole things, being in the world but not of the world. The duck is in the water, but when it comes out, it shakes it off and becomes dry again. The boat is in the water, but the water is not in the boat, that type of thing. We go out in the world, we engage with all activities, but the world is not able to affect us. We don't carry it and bring it back at home because we can shed it off like the duck, so to say. Likewise, the ideal person is one who is established in that knowledge, Sthita Prajna, taught in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is what Sri Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. Don't run away from this battlefield. Be established in that knowledge of your true nature. The Atman is never born, it does not die. All these warriors that you see there who are going apparently being killed, body will be destroyed, but really the Atman won't be destroyed. Really, there are not many Atmans. There's only one Paramatman. I am that one residing in the heart of all beings. Know yourself to be an instrument in the hands of this being, and then engage and be part of this drama and this play of the Paramatman. Actually, it is I who dwell in your heart and do all things. I pull the strings and everyone dances, so to say. That type of understanding, enlightened, and you go out in the world armed with that knowledge. And and of course, it's not only intellectual knowledge, it is something that has to come out of realization. Intellectual knowledge disappears very quickly. So they who know thus, whatever is taught in this Bhagavad Gita, here knowing does not mean conceptual knowledge. It's more about experiential knowledge. And so then it's not seeing through the eye of understanding, but through an eye of realization. Through the eye of wisdom, what do they know? The distinction between the field and the knower of the field. क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञ अंतरम, अंतर में सदिश अंतर क्या है? क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोर क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोर अंतरम. So how do they know? Jnana chakshusha. Chakshu means eyes. What type of eyes? The eye of knowledge, not eye of understanding. That's helpful, but really the eye of realization. What do they know? Bhut prakriti moksham cha. So there's a word that is the interesting word. They know uh, Kshetra Kshetragnayor Antaram, the difference between the field and the knower of the field, and Moksham, the annihilation of Bhuta Prakriti, the matrix of beings, described as ignorance, also called unmanifest. They, such knowers, such people of realization, whose jnana chakshu, eye, spiritual eye is opened, what happens to them? They yanti means reach the supreme. Supreme is the param, Brahman, the unaffected nature. So it's like the white light says, I contain within myself all the colors. Sometimes I spread out myself in a beautiful spectrum. They all exist in me, yet I'm not affected by any one in them. So such a person then is able to enjoy this world, play in this world as an actor who puts on a different role according to how the director wants him to play. Sometimes he's the hero, sometimes he's the villain, sometimes whatever, but whichever role he takes up, he plays so beautifully. But he always knows that's only a drama, a part he plays. As a person, he's totally different. His own reality is different from the character that is being portrayed in that movie. So that whole field, the whole matrix of beings, this whole prakriti is what is bhuta prakriti, moksha. Means in his eyes, all that becomes annihilated. Annihilated does not mean like an atom bomb or something happened and then everything disappeared. It is annihilated through knowledge. So you see the whole spectrum of colors that you see. And if you have the knowledge, then you have the knowledge says they all come out of white light. So all have been resolved to their cause. So destruction doesn't mean gross it's not to be understood in a very gross way. It means resolving something in its finer cause. Just like ice has got a piece of foam and you melt it, and somebody who did not know that ice becomes water, he says, oh, my solid of piece of ice has become destroyed. No, it has gone back to its cause. Now somebody, a child, is looking at a little bit of water that is in a stove, and after some time the water disappears. So if that knowledge is not there, that actually the water came out of the water vapor, then the child will say, oh, this has become destroyed. Destroyed means its form has disappeared, or to put it in another way, it has resolved to its finer course. The same water molecules are there. In ice, they were stuck in a place, not able to move around. In water, they're able to float around, but confined by the boundaries of the water vessel. And later on, they are free to float around in the air. If you are a water molecule, he says, oh, I'm just experiencing myself in different ways. As ice, I was stuck in a place. In water, I had a different experience as water vapor. I'm everywhere. I can move freely in this whole space. I have a greater degree of freedom. So as it becomes subtler and subtler, the degree of freedom improves, increases. But he says, I'm there all the time. Whether other people can see me or not is another thing. I'm not destroyed. But from the observer's point of view, what happened to my eyes? What happened to my water? So likewise, this body and the mind and the buddhi, ego, these are like different states of the same thing. Sometimes we are attached to the very gross level, and then all the properties and qualities of the body are appropriated to it, and we say, I'm hungry, I'm sick, or all that. Sometimes it is identified with the mind, and you say, I know, I don't know, I'm happy, I'm miserable, I'm confused, and all those type of things are there. Basically, the properties and qualities of the mind are now appropriated by the ego. At sometimes mind is freed from all those also, so it has a great degree of peace, not affected by what's changes in the body or the mind. But the ultimate it is when it is able to totally free itself from this whole matrix of body mind complex beyond the 24 cosmic principles, and abides in its own pristine purity and beauty. So this is um, a sort of a study of the chapter 13, where we have gone through two stages and touched on the third stage of the 6 steps of Bloom's taxonomy that we talked about right at the beginning of this particular study. Before we launched ourselves in the study, we said that we will um, make a more systematic study where there are different stages through which ideas are assimilated. Assimilation of ideas is more important than filling the mind with so much information and knowledge. Swami Vivekananda says if you have assimilated 5 ideas, you have more knowledge than somebody who has mugged up the whole universe library. So with that idea, we talked about that there are 6 stages through which an idea is assimilated. What are they? We said the first one is information. Just if I say, can you repeat these verses? And you say, I can chant them. I say, ask you what's the meaning? Say, I do not know. So that would be just information. But if you can tell the word-to-word meaning or have a simple translation of it, then that's a second stage of understanding. But you might know the verse and can give an explanation of it. The third question is, are you applying it? And if you are not, then you have just completed 2 stages of it. So the third stage is called application. And while we are going through these verses, we were trying to touch here and there about how we can apply this knowledge in our everyday life. Otherwise, there's no point of carrying all this information. That would be just like a donkey carrying so much sandalwood, not enjoying the fragrance of the sandalwood. Or before I go there, I just might want to just note out, you see in this last verse, 13.4, this word matrix comes, bhuta prakriti. And you may want to watch the movie, The Matrix, keeping in mind what is being explained here. This particular translation, where this word matrix is used, is given in Swami Gambhirananji's translation of the commentary of Acharya Shankara. That is a standard uh, translation of the Bhagavad Gita used in most of the philosophy classes or courses in the universities in India. Swami Gambhiranji was one of the, I think, 8th president of the Ramakrishna Mission, a great scholar, and he translated the Acharya Shankara's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita into English, and in his translation, he uses this word matrix. And you all know the word matrix in the movies, but you might wonder where did that maybe they picked up this word, the title of the movie from here, because there they also show this matrix in which we are caught and how to get out of it as a side reference. Going back to Bloom's taxonomy, so knowledge or information, understanding, second part, we think we might have covered that here. Application, that is something each one has to think about how you would apply this in your station of life, where you work, what you do. The way I would apply as a monk would be different from how you would apply in your life, wherever you are, whatever you do. So I cannot really tell you. You have to think and process that and find out situations and instances where this knowledge can help you. And so those are the first three stages of Bloom's taxonomy. And then what are the others? Analysis, synthesis, and feedback. And that's where the real study comes in. So we have touched the first two stages. What I propose to do is then go through this chapter once more. If we don't do that, then we'll not do very much, because this is all available in so many forms, what we have been discussing in so many books, translations are there. That was just a preparation to it. Let us seriously study this chapter and go back through it once more and look at the application part of it. What ideas we can pick out of there to enlighten ourselves, so that we have a more enlightened understanding of ourselves, world around us, how we interact around the world, how the world affects us, and how we can empower ourselves to be free from uh, how the world is trying to force us to react, so that we can choose and respond as we wish, but not be forced to react to this world. That will require some serious thinking, and I hope you will, and I won't do that for you. We'll go through the process, and hopefully we'll have more discussions now, uh, and share our ideas in that process. Uh, Let's look at the application of this Gita. Gita is not only philosophy, it's taught in the battlefield of life. It's not taught to some Swami in a mountain cave by Sri Krishna. So it has to help us fight our own battle through a more enlightened understanding of the world and ourselves. So I think it's a good place to conclude. All the verses, all the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are conclude. Om is the supreme Shabda Brahman. Tat Sat iti. Om Tat Sat is, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, any work that we do is to be offered to the Supreme Being, but nothing is perfect. To remove the defects of any work before its offering, whether you cook a meal or you chant a mantra or japa or whatever, before you offer, you say Om Tat Sat, that removes the imperfections. So Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Gita means the song of the divine. Sri Krishna is singing this beautiful philosophy of knowledge to the mankind. Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu. This is also a form of the Upanishad. Upanishad. Shad means that which destroys. Destroys spiritual ignorance. Ni means totally destroys. Upa means coming nearby, like upavas, upasana. So when we approach this knowledge totally destroys our spiritual ignorance. Brahma Vidyayam. This is the subject matter of this is Brahma Vidya, not the Vidya of this world. Yoga Shastra. It's a scripture that talks about yoga. What is it? Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade. It's a conversation between Shri Krishna and Arjun. What is the conversation in this particular chapter? Kshetragna Vivhaga Yoga Nama Trayodasho Adhyaya. Traya is 3, Dasha is 10, 13th Adhyaya chapter. So this is how chapter 13 is concluded. All right, so we'll have a discussion or something for another 5 minutes before we conclude today's Can you put your mics on, please? My suggestion is that we go through this once more and review and look at the application part of it, but I'm open to suggestions from others. Anyone out there?
Swamiji, namaste.
Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was saying something. Who was it? Satesh?
Yeah, Swamiji. Yeah, I mean, like you have covered this chapter 13 very well. You know, on the Sunday class, you were doing chapter 10, and you talk about this spiritual development and everything. I mean, are you going to? I mean, okay, after doing analysis of chapter 13, are you going to do the whole of the Gita?
I do not know what we'll do. I've got some other plan in mind, but let's get this one nicely done. Let's not rush through. Otherwise, we'll be skimming over the surface. Let's dive a little deep. Then we'll enjoy it more. Chapter 10, I was just talking about divine grace, referring to those 4 verses only, how grace is received, but we're not going to read that chapter. We'll take up a vote or decide on something. But my proposal is not to just say we completed this, let's stop here and jump to another chapter. Let's go a little deeper. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
That means homework is there for people. So what's the homework? You go through this 34 verses and try to subdivide that into certain sections and say, these 3 verses talk about this one idea. Then you take, for example, the first couple of verses talk about the Kshetra. So, and then you just define it. Then talks about Kshetrajna. Certain verses are there. Then the Jnana. So like this, let's make that, divide that chapter into certain sections. And then we'll see how we'll integrate them all together. Because when analysis comes, you separate them all together, which is all separated. Now we are slowly trying to combine and make them. And ultimately, we should be able to say, in say 5 sentences, what is the essence of this chapter? Okay, so we'll have to do that exercise and do it collectively. I don't want to do it for you. So the processing, that you have to give that exercise to your own mind. So if I had asked you before, you say, oh, I don't understand all this verses, what do they mean? Now you should not say that. You said, okay, I understand sufficiently and we can collectively work. How's that?
Swamiji, I've got a question.
You have one question, all right.
It is not clear that when you are saying that Atman is like clear light and it is untainted, then how do the karmas go with us? Bad karma, good karma, whatever it is.
The karma affects the mind. And the mind is the barrier that hides the Atman. Okay. So just like this.
When the Atma goes, as they say, it is untainted and it is clear light. So mind is left behind when the body is burnt, the mind will be burnt and finish here, isn't it? Or does it go with the Atma? How does that work?
Oh, you mean what happens to the mind when you die?
Yeah.
Oh, the mind is very much there.
But isn't it when they burn the body and mind breaks and it's all finished, then how do it go next life?
No. Only the body is burnt. Okay, you watch it when they do it to you, okay?
I can't watch. Then I can't answer back. And I can't come to ask you.
Next time when we go through the process, just watch what is happening. So what happens? The mind is a repository where all knowledge and our prarabdha and desires and vasanas are kept, right?
Yeah.
That mind is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. It remains. So it finds, it still has a desire for this world. I want to enjoy this world, etc. and everything. And says, I'm not finished with this world. So it comes and jumps into another body somewhere in some family and comes. The mind is not destroyed. If the mind is destroyed, Jyoti, you are very close to liberation.
That's what I was thinking, how it can happen that Atma goes up and Atma is untainted, that what happens to the mind?
No. Really, one is the apparent Atma, which is the reflected sun, which thinks it is coming and going. All right?
Mm-hmm.
But the real Atman, the one who is not untainted, is the one in the sky.
Yeah.
Okay, and really we are the one in the sky, not the one that is being reflected. Okay. So when you say I am Jyoti and this and that, I'm dying or becoming old, that is not the real Atma in the sky. That is the one that's being reflected in the water.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one who's feeling or suffers under, labors under the illusion of birth and death and actions. I'm doer and I'm joy. That is the one that we are trying to sort out by reminding ourselves that my identity is the real sun in the sky, not looking down and say I'm part of this wave.
There is another problem, Swamiji.
You have
when
only
we-
one problem. I have got so many problems.
Not problem, it's a question. No problem. I don't have problems. Question.
Mm.
The question is, now you made me forget. Okay. Yeah, when we are learning or when we are discussing, it looks like we understand everything.
Mm.
But when, even if we read in between, when the next time comes, it looks like don't know what it was.
So that means that when it's fresh in the mind, those ideas are there, and afterwards, when you hunt in your mind, what happened to those ideas, where it went away, is it? You've
Yeah,
forgotten.
something like that.
Yeah, so that
We
means
might remember when you start discussing something, it might comes, we have done this. But if you say, mind, where is that? Mind says,
yeah. So you see, impressions. It's a Holy Mother says, spiritual study or spiritual instruction becomes fruitful or leave their good impressions in a mind that has got some degree of sattva. Okay, if the mind is too tamasic, then it does not retain any impressions. So you keep on reading and then next day say, what was it, and then, but as the sattva element increases, then you find those subtle ideas, because these are very subtle ideas, Jyoti.
Yeah.
And the mind, if it's very gross, then it's not able to capture those subtle ideas. Can you follow? So you require a subtle mind to capture subtle ideas. Make sense? Then a real aspirant says, okay, this is all very good ideas and there I get it, but I lose it every time, like you say. How can I have a right mind to capture those subtle ideas? So then the emphasis is not about trying to understand what's in the Gita. Emphasis about purification of that mind to develop its subtlety so that it can capture all those subtle ideas that is coming out of the book. So it's just all around there in this high frequency state. That's where sadhana comes. Sadhana means purification of the mind, chitta shuddhi. And once you understand all that, then the question is, okay, keep the Gita aside. Tell me how I can get that subtle mind by which I should be able to capture all the subtle ideas just in a glance. And that's where japa and meditation comes. Meditation is developing that one focus of mind. Many people sit down there thinking, and the mind is running wild all the time. How to give it an anchor, how to give it a location, a focus, and some thought that is uplifting. It contains within itself that energy that will raise the mind up. So such capsules of spiritual energy are what are called mantras. And when you have the right mantra, that is linking to the source, which is starting with Om, with a Bija mantra, some aspect of the divine, and then you keep the mind in that loop, the energy begins to work in you, just like the antibiotic you take works in your own body, and the disease becomes cured. The mind gets uplifted, develops that subtlety. And then with that mind, when you read a scripture, you just get the ideas like that. You'll discover, wow, this wonderful ideas. I never thought like that, but it's coming up, popping up. That means now you are making progress in your spiritual sadhana. So
thank you very much for explanation. It was very good. Thank you.
yeah, so that's why sadhana is the most important point. And if you do that part side by side, we keep on studying. As the mind becomes purer, more and more knowledge comes out. If you think all the knowledge is in this Bhagavad Gita, then by studying it, you are filling your mind with all these wonderful ideas. That is out of ignorance. Really, the Atman is full of knowledge. The scriptures are reflectors in which we see. If the reflector is clear, we see a very clear image of ourselves. So how do we purify the mind? And then whatever we study, any scripture, they will help us in revealing our true nature. Okie dokie.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else out there has to say something?
Swamiji, I have a question. You have mentioned Swami Gambhiranandaji's Bhagavad Gita often. Would you recommend that we should read it? Because I've got my own, and like, would it be help if we read that commentary?
Yeah. Well, you have seen the translations and the meanings that we are presenting here is coming out of that. Okay, but not the full detail. This is
Not
like
the commentary. Yes, I'm talking in terms of commentary.
Yeah, the commentary is good. It's very, very precise. So precise that universities, when they want to select a text that is authentic and true to the spirit of what is said in all scriptures, not little fanatical, and they go in their own, because there's so many commentators who interpret in their own way.
Yeah.
Okay. So who is not trying to establish what is authentically there with a very simple, but he had a very good command of Sanskrit and very good command of English. And that's why in most universities, Delhi University, other places, Calcutta University, that's a textbook that is. So from that point of view, yes, you can, we don't have a copy of that here. You can order it online from our Advaita Ashrama bookstore. If you wait later on, we probably in our next order, we can get some. Because it's a little higher, okay. Those who want to go deeper. So I've gone through this and say, let me go a little deeper, then that will be the one to use.
So if we don't have that at the moment, any other particular commentary you'd recommend?
Yes, and the one that I'm using right now is this one. This is Swami Tapasyananda's, and there's another one, Swami Vireshwaranji's. Pretty good as a next clip. This is pretty good in the sense, yeah, I refer to sometimes also. And this is available in the ashrama now. Okay. And if those who are interested to know a little bit of science, this is something I have read, this book, have a look at this. The Holographic Universe. Okay. The author is Michael Talbot. It's available on Amazon and all that.
I read some, Swamiji.
You've read that. Is it good?
No, not all of it. I mean, I went through about 10, 20 pages to the brain, where it says you turn the brain upside down, it thinks the same thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you see, we are all trying to approach the truth. The Vedic seers went in another way, and that understanding is available in our scriptures. The modern scientists are also trying to approach the truth, and they're trying to find how the whole world came and how we are constituted. And our education is built around studying maths, chemistry, physics, biology, and all those things, compared to the children in the Vedic ages, they were studying in the Gurukula, and they learned the Sankhya philosophy, Gita, Upanishad, and all that. So how do we, since we have learned so much of this through so many years of hard study, can we use a little bit of that knowledge to enlighten ourselves from a spiritual point of view and sort of harmonize a little bit of science and spiritual science? This philosophy that the world is a hologram is beautifully explained there, and I like it. Actually, chapter 15, chapter 13 can both be explained from using that concept. I have an interest maybe sometime to introduce, take a few classes on what is a hologram and how it is seen, and then say, hey, look, our modern science is also approaching it. They haven't reached that highest level of Atman, Paramatman, but their approach is some approach like this also available in our science, just for people who are interested in that. Yeah. So
I read the part where, I mean, I was going to, but I mean, some things go over the head. I mean, I don't understand it. But I came to the place where it says you cut the brain and you put upside down or sideways or anything, but your mind thinks the same.
Yeah, so this, let me just conclude this, stop the recording, then let's finish this and then we'll discuss a little bit beyond this. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tatsat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Okay, 1 minute. Let me sort this out and then stop.